r/AskReddit. The question in this video is, taxi drivers of Reddit, have anyone actually jumped into your taxi and screamed follow that car? If yes, what happened? I did that once as a passenger. We said it as a joke. We were in a group of 6 and couldn't fit in a single cab. So I went into the second cab and said, follow that cab. We expected the driver to laugh it off and ask for our destination. Instead, he just took off and followed the first cab. He'd been waiting for that moment. Friend of mine is a taxi driver and this has happened to him. An elderly man rushed inside his taxi and pointed out loud to follow a red Toyota. This man never explains why to follow, just tries to frantically call somewhere. My friend asked multiple times if they need to call police, but the man just waved no and pointed to follow the car. They circle around the town, finally ending up to a front of a house where the car followed parks. As the car stops, man says hold on a moment, I'll pay, and jumps out of the car. An elderly lady steps out of the red Toyota and the man, apparently her husband, starts to scream, why did you left me at the mall? Woman is waving her hands screaming back, what are you screaming about? You are here, and walks inside the house like nothing has happened. Man returns and pays the drive, being sorry about it all at the same time. My friend thought they were following a burglar or something, but it turned out the lady just forgot her husband at the mall. Funny situation in a way, but sad in a way too, as my friend said. Dementia. I followed the car. It stopped in a suburban house. Dude went into the house. They were his family and didn't have room for him with them. What a roller coaster. Reality is often disappointing. A personal trainer at my old gym did this. He saw a guy shoot another guy in the head and jump into a car. So he got into a cab so the shooter wouldn't get away. The cabbie followed the car for a bit until he learned that he was following a murderer. Then he pulled over and refused. Turns out, the shooter was an undercover police officer, who sped away because he thought the victim's friends would get to the scene before the cops. My uncle has a similar story. He recently had his car stolen and was driving his GF's car. When he noticed his stolen car driving around, he followed the car until it pulled up next to a house and did a drive-by. I believe someone was shot but lived. Needless to say, he no longer followed his car after that. Luckily he was on the phone with police the whole time. I had a fare jump in my car, who immediately started berating about my car, and how Uber does not allow drivers to use two-door cars. This came as a surprise to me, because I was not, and never have been, an Uber driver. I was just parked in front of the hotel waiting for a friend. This has happened to me twice. The second time the girl was so glued to her phone that she didn't even make eye contact. I let it roll for a couple seconds before I finally asked her why she was in my car. She looked up, wordlessly opened the door, and disappeared into the night. Really makes you think about how the world has changed when it's normal to pop into a stranger's backseat but weird to talk to them once you're in. Not a taxi driver, but one time after a work party a bunch of coworkers and I were going to a different bar and we needed to take cabs. A few of us got into one and the rest in another. One of my coworkers told our cabbie, "Hey, if you can beat that other cab, I'll give you an extra $20. The cabbie smiled in the rearview and said, "Okay, buddy." He started weaving between cars until he got in front of the other cab. Then he perfectly timed it so he could get the other cab stuck at a red light while he just made it past. With that head start he had no need to really rush and he calmly got us to the bar first. I think he actually really enjoyed it and got a pretty nice tip for a short trip. Your coworkers in the other cab should have made the same offer to their driver. That would have made it a lot more interesting and dangerous. I'm actually a taxi driver. Bike taxi pedicab. I was hanging out a corner when a coworker of mine got a ride across the intersection. Suddenly a guy walks up to me and tells me to follow that cab, but keep a distance. This guy looked current or ex-military. Demeanor, haircut, attitude. Has one of those earbuds like the agents from the Matrix. Exuded the vibe of being very professional, competent and not giving a frick at the same time. So I was born for this moment. I read all the Tom Clancy books as a kid. All the books about spycraft during World War II and the Cold War. Every spy movie ever made, etc. I kept about 100 yards distance and then would accelerate when they went around a curve anytime they were near a light or intersection. I have all the lights memorized, to ensure we would make the same light but a little later than they did. At one point a car pulls up alongside and another guy switches places with the original guy and we keep going. After about 12 blocks the pedicab pulls over ahead of us and the guy tells me to pull over. Hands me a $20 for a $12 ride. Although I would have done it for free just to live my 9-year-old fantasy. Probably just local cops, but I can dream. I used to ride a pedicab, bicycle taxi. In NYC a drunk financed bro told me to follow his friend who was running away. I caught him in about a block and a half. The bro jumps out of my trike not paying and tackles his friend. He then comes back to me and gives me $40. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more Reddit content.